Hello everyone, this is Mr. O'Brien, and in this video I'm going to be discussing Dr. King's essay, Nonviolence and Racial Justice, which he wrote for the Christian Century in 1957. All right, and again, if you have any questions as I'm going through this or afterwards, of course, please ask via email, although this one I think is more straightforward than many of them. So for this one, I'm actually going to read the head note right above it. At age 28, so again, we're still talking about the young Dr. King. The Reverend Martin Luther King was a recently minted PhD, a young father, and the face of the rising civil rights movement. This was shortly after the Montgomery bus boycott. So this document was actually written prior to letters from a Birmingham jail, even though it takes place after in the packet. So when he wrote this article explaining the credo of nonviolent resistance, he and the Black community of Montgomery, Alabama had just ended their successful boycott of segregated city buses. All right, and I color-coded them to make it easier to go through. But again, if you just go down to the questions, what is King's first point supporting nonviolence? And that's what this essay is. He's just kind of outlining why he does nonviolent direct action. So the first thing he says is it is not a method for cowards. In other words, the criticism of this by people like Malcolm X and other Black nationalists was that it's cowardly, it's passive, it's not really doing anything. All right, he says that's not true. Maybe we're not doing anything physically, but we're resisting spiritually, he says. So he says, first, this is not a method for cowards. It does resist. The nonviolent resistor is just as strongly opposed to the evil against which he protests as is the person who uses violence. His method is passive or non-aggressive in the sense that he's not physically aggressive, but his mind and emotions are always active, constantly seeking to persuade the opponent that he is mistaken. That's an important aspect of this. He's trying to persuade the person they are wrong, not aggressively confront them into submission. So he says it's strong spiritually, maybe not physically. And that would be in the second paragraph there, the one that's highlighted yellow. So the next question is his second point. All right, the first sentence there is in the next paragraph. The third one is very important, the green paragraph. A second point, this is the second question, is that nonviolent resistance does not seek to defeat or humiliate the opponent, but to win his friendship and understanding. The nonviolent resistor must often express his protest through non-cooperation or boycotts, but he realizes that non-cooperation and boycotts are not ends themselves, not method. They are not the goal. They are merely means or methods to awaken a sense of moral shame in the opponent. The end is redemption and reconciliation. According to King, the aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of, and here's the phrase of the packet, the beloved community. So this should find its way into your final essay. While the aftermath of violence is tragic bitterness. All right, so again, he is not attacking any individual. He's not trying to humiliate any individual. He's trying to show them the light, so to speak. All right, third question. Basically, in the third question here, fourth paragraph, he's basically saying he's not attacking any white individual. He's attacking whiteness. He recognizes that they are also victims of this as well. So let's look at this. A third characteristic of this method is that the attack is directed against forces of evil rather than against persons who are caught in those forces. Again, they're victims of this too. It makes them bad people. It is the evil we are seeking to defeat, not the persons victimized by evil. They're going against whiteness, not white people. Those of us who struggle against racial injustice must come to see that the basic tension is not between the races. All right, so again, for a third time, not attacking the actual individual, but attacking the victim to which he's also or she is also victimized, or by which he or she is also victimized. All right, the fourth point that must be brought out concerning nonviolent resistance is that it avoids not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. At the center of nonviolence stands the principle of love, and that's his point here, that this system is grounded in love, not hate. In struggling for human dignity, the oppressed people of the world must not allow themselves to become bitter or indulge in hate campaigns. In other words, the oppressed cannot become the oppressor, which we talked about in the Children's Crusade lesson. To retaliate with hate and bitterness would do nothing but intensify the hate in the world. Along the way of life, someone must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate. This can be done only by projecting the ethics of love to the center of our lives. So basically, this system does not ruin them spiritually, does not perpetuate hate. Now, finally, what is his fifth point? All right, and this is a very important point that King often made, and this should find its way into your final paper. This method of nonviolence is based on his belief, his conviction, that the universe is on the side of justice. All right, it is this deep faith in the future that causes the nonviolent resistor to accept suffering without retaliation. In other words, the activist knows that he or she is moving the world towards greater freedom and greater justice, so is willing to accept the blows coming his or her way in that struggle. He knows that in his struggle for justice, he has cosmic companionship, meaning everybody in the universe, all right, or the universe itself is on his or her side because they're on the side of justice. The belief that God is on the side of truth and justice comes down to us from the long tradition of our Christian faith. There is something at the very center of our faith which reminds us that Good Friday may reign for a day, but ultimately it must give way to the triumphant beat of the Easter drums. Something similar to this argument will happen in a later essay or later speech by King about the long historical arc of justice. But for now, all you could really put, or all you need to really put, is that the universe is on the side of this type of struggle because it helps improve the universe, which always, he argues, in the long run, always moves towards greater freedom and greater justice. All right, so there we have it.